So this is a part 3 to my previous 2 videos, so go check them out first. This video will make a lot more sense. But what I was talking about was the Seattle Supersonics then. They eventually became the Oklahoma City Thunder, and this just sticks out to me because of last year, one of the biggest things I talked about was how the NBA All-Star Week happened to fall on the same days as Lupercalia, the ancient Roman festival where they sacrifice and celebrate the wolf. And I talked about how Andrew Wiggins, who is a teen Minnesota Timberwolf, like a teen wolf, won the Rising Star Challenge MVP. And then the next night on Valentine's Day, Zach LaVine, another teen Minnesota Timberwolf, won the NBA Slam Dunk Contest. And he also did the Space Jam dunk, which ties back into Michael Jordan and whatever. But the All-Star game, the actual All-Star game, the MVP of that was Russell Westbrook of the Oklahoma City Thunder, who also just so happens to be number 0, just like the Monstars on Space Jam. It's funny because he even kind of looks like one of the Monstars if you look at him, and then you look at a picture of the Monstars, but, I mean, who knows? There was also a whole bunch of 2-2-2 surrounded by him. He even started getting all them triple doubles after Kevin Garnett got hurt. Triple double, kind of like a triple 2. And there was lots of other 2-2-2 stuff in the news. Even the Philadelphia train wreck tied into the number 222. The San Bernardino shooting that just happened in San Bernardino, California adds up to 222. It was founded on the 222nd day of the year. Even to put it in perspective, George Washington, so back to the history of the United States, George Washington was born on February 22nd, 222. It's also the 53rd day of the year, which ties into Herbie, the love bug, right? The love bug, the Valentine stuff. Herbie was number 53. And there's a picture of it. You can't really see it that well there, but number 53. Interesting, too, in the newer movie with Lindsay Lohan, she's wearing a shirt with the Golden Gate Bridge, and it also has the blood moon behind it. And there was lots of stuff dealing with the Golden Gate Bridge and the blood moon that happened on September 28th, just after Pope Francis visited the United States. This movie also starred Dean Jones. Dean Jones died this year on 9/1, which I talked about the reason why Nebraska Cornhuskers were going to have a bad season. Right around the same time, they also had Nebraska Cornhusker stuff was dealing with their PA announcer, PA, right, like the abbreviation for Pennsylvania. And Nebraska Cornhuskers mascot is Herbie Husker. It also tied into the Jerry Sandusky stuff, at Penn State, Pennsylvania State. Even Nebraska was the first team to play Penn State after the whole Jerry Sandusky got fired and whatnot. And I talked about how it tied into the movie Tommy Boy because one of the famous lines in that movie is John Hancock, it's Herbie Hancock. And interesting, when I rewatched that movie, in the very beginning when Tommy Boy is a young kid, he drops his U.S. history book, and scribbled on the bottom of the book is 239. Why would it have 239 on there if it wasn't about the 239th year of the United States, which is this year until July 4th. And Tommy Boy is also set in the town of Sandusky, Ohio. And if you look up Sandusky, Ohio, this is the layout of the streets in Sandusky, Ohio. Just like the Freemason symbol. Also, Russell Westbrook, I said he was number 0, so he's like the Monstar in Space Jam. But think about all of the players, the star players that were hurt last season. Kevin Durant was out, Derrick Rose, Kobe Bryant, Paul George. I mean, the list goes on. Chris Bosh even. Like all of the star players, it's kind of like Space Jam, where they all lost their talent. And before I even did Gematria on any of it, I predicted that the Golden State Warriors were going to win the NBA Finals because they were one of the only teams that had a number 23 and not a number 0 that had any chance of winning. Michael Jordan was number 23. The Cleveland Cavaliers had Kevin Love, although he did get hurt. He was number 0. So it wouldn't have really made any sense for the Cavs to win if they had a Monstar on their team. Of course, then when you did all the Gematria and whatnot, it fit perfectly with the story. Golden State even won the NBA Finals 122 days after Valentine's Day, and Golden State adds up to 122, just like Pope Francis. Interesting, the 122nd day is May 2nd, which is 5-2, kind of like 52. You also had Princess Charlotte, who was born on May 2nd, 52. And to tie it into Michael Jordan is the owner of the Charlotte Hornets, and he's also 52 this year. And Michael Jordan also played for 9 seasons wearing number 23, the 923 reference. You know, that was before his first retirement. Then he came back wearing the number 45. The 45th day of the year is Valentine's Day. And of course, he only wore that jersey for 22 games. And on the 23rd game that year, Michael Jordan went back to wearing number 23. He even wore the number 12 one time ever in one game because supposedly someone broke into their locker room and stole his jersey. So he had to wear the number 12. It just so happened to be on Valentine's Day. It was the Bulls' 49th game of the year. Jordan scored 49 points in that game. 49 even ties into Valentine's Day. The 49th prime is 227. 227, February 27th, Gregorian to Julian, is the same as Valentine's Day. Michael Jordan also wore number 9 on the Dream Team. And on the movie Space Jam, when they have to go back and get Michael Jordan's uniform, up on the wall, framed, is his Dream Team jersey with the number 23. So they have 9 and 23 framed right next to each other. Also, in regards to Pope Francis came to the United States on 9/22 this year, September 22nd. It was his 923rd day as Pope. The next day, he went to the White House on 9/23. He arrived at exactly 9:23 a.m. He's the 266th Pope. 9/23 is the 266th day of the year. But in regards to the 9/22 on this movie, 9 tune players get hurt before they bring in number 22, Bill Murray. So 9/22 reference. Bill Murray even comes in and then he talks to Daffy Duck about running a play, and Daffy Duck is number 2. So like 22 and 2, the 2-2-2 reference. Also, Michael Jordan was born on February 17th. Interesting. If you add, so it's like 217. If you add 217 days to that, it takes you to 9/22. So in regards to the NBA All-Star Week again, and dealing with the Teen Wolf stuff, Andrew Wiggins here was the one who won the Rising Star MVP on the first day of Lupercalia, February 13th. He's even born on 2/23, just like Flip Saunders, who announced that he had cancer on the 223rd day of the year. And then the Timberwolves even played the Lakers this year, the first game of the season, and the score even totaled 223, and it was a tribute to Flip Saunders. But so he won that. He's a Teen Wolf. The other one that really stuck out to me was Zach LaVine. So he was another Teen Wolf, and he won the NBA Slam Dunk Contest, and he also did the Michael Jordan Space Jam dunk. But a few things really stuck out to me that I never noticed before was his name in gematria, Zach LaVine. It adds up to 101 and also 47, exactly like Chip Kelly. He also grew up in Renton, Washington, which is just like right outside of Seattle. My uncle lives there. I don't know if it's a complete suburb, but it says on here 11 miles southeast of downtown Seattle even. And interesting, look where Seattle, it's 47 degrees north, 122 degrees west. Interesting numbers. Even, I forgot to mention in here, Slam Dunk Contest. Slam Dunk Contest adds up to 47. So he won the Slam Dunk Contest. And he did the Space Jam dunk, right? Interesting, Space Jam. Just interesting numbers. It's all about Michael Jordan. Space Jam adds up to 23. It also adds up to 68, a number that I mentioned in the previous part of this little series. Interesting, though, he didn't go to Washington for college or whatever. He went to UCLA. And it says down here the reason that he did was because his dad grew up a fan of the Bruins because he grew up nearby San Bernardino, California. I mean, just pretty interesting that would even be written in there. Also, what sticks out to me was that he played for UCLA. Russell Westbrook also played for UCLA. Also, Kevin Love played for UCLA. And Kevin Love was in the trade with Andrew Wiggins. He's the reason that Andrew Wiggins went to the Timberwolves. Kevin Love was also a Timberwolf before that. I also talked about how it dealt with the Nebraska Cornhuskers because they play in Lincoln, Nebraska. And on the movie Teen Wolf, there is Nebraska Cornhusker stuff all over in the background. There's even a license plate that's a Nebraska license plate. But the movie has nothing to do with Lincoln, Nebraska. There's palm trees in the movie. I've looked it up. Nobody knows for sure if there was even a part where it was filmed in Nebraska. There's tons of people who say it wasn't even filmed in Nebraska and whatever. So there's also the Civil War scene after he becomes the wolf. He joins the school play. The school play is about the Civil War. So, it ties back into Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln, Nebraska adds up to 60. Also, Abraham Lincoln in Gematria adds up to 60. But look who, Nebraska wasn't even supposed to make a bowl game. They had a terrible record. They ended up getting to go to a bowl game. And look who they played. UCLA. The Foster Farms Bowl. 37 plus 29 adds up to 66. Look at Foster Farms Bowl in Gematria. 66. Interesting. The score adds up to 66 in the bowl that adds up to 66. And then, what are the odds? Nebraska plays UCLA Bruins. Nebraska scores 37 points. Another interesting thing. In Gematria, Teen Wolf adds up to 37. And doesn't it just seem kind of interesting? This is the Back to the Future guy, Michael J. Fox, MJ, kind of like Michael Jordan. The guy who even plays his best friend in the movie has, Jerry Levine even. Interesting, but it's about basketball even, The movie's about, it's a pointless movie about this guy who's terrible at basketball, and then he becomes good because he turns into a wolf. It's just so ridiculously coded. And down here, so the beaver mascot in the movie, it says the beaver mascot logo used in the film was the Oregon State University Beavers logo. Come on, what are the odds of that? Mike Riley, the Nebraska Cornhusker coach, the new Nebraska Cornhusker coach, he's known for being the head coach of the Oregon State Beavers. Come on. And I made a whole bunch of videos on this as well. Corvallis, Oregon even tied into the Mormons, the Book of Mormon that has 239 chapters in it, the amount of the United States or whatever. But they have this thing called the Civil War game where they play the Oregon Ducks. Remember, Chip Kelly was the previous coach of the Oregon Ducks. That's what he is mostly known for. Interesting, it would be called the Civil War game. Also, interesting, so it was first played 121 years ago. Revelation adds up to 121, the end or whatever. But the first game ever was in 1894, and then the last game that just happened, the score even added up to 94, the end, kind of meeting the beginning with the end. Also, the last meeting was on the 331st day of the year this year. Just interesting because in one of the previous parts I mentioned the Kanye West stuff and how the number 331 was an interesting number. It even tied into 11/26 of next year, which some people have been talking about the beginning of World War III. So just pretty interesting how they've put all of this together. The Teen Wolf stuff also goes back to the Mighty Ducks. Kevin Garnett was the first Teen Wolf, played for Minnesota Timberwolves. But this movie takes place in Minneapolis, so interesting. Also in Gematria, you got Kevin Garnett adds up to 56, just like Wolf. And I've mentioned how Kevin Garnett ties into the death of Philadelphia 76ers. Moses Malone was the first player to go out of high school to play in the ABA. He died this year. Daryl Dawkins, the first player to go out of high school to the NBA. He also died this year, both famous for being Philadelphia 76ers. Which I also believe is probably why Goldberg says he's going to be moving back to Philly, and then he never moves back to Philly. But anyway, I'm going to make another part after this. So thanks for sticking with me. See you in the next part.